All right, hi folks. Welcome, welcome. Allow folks to start logging in. Thanks for joining us tonight. All right, so looks like Ehren's logging in right now. While that's going through, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Olivia Amaya Ortiz, and I'm an educator here at the School for Advanced Research's Indian Arts Research Center. This is another installment of our SAR Artists live series where viewers get to jump behind the scenes and into the workspaces of some pretty talented artists. And this program is partially funded by the City of Santa Fe, Arts and Culture Department, and the 1% lodgers tax. All right, so while we wait for Ehren, I'll just go ahead, and for those of you who have been following along, you'll remember. Let's see if that works. Okay, you remember that this season of SAR Artists Live, we're specifically, hey Ehren, glad you could log in. So I'll just finish introductions really quickly and then we'll get going. So this season, we're specifically looking at how do artists teach, and conversely, how do artists learn, and better understanding intergenerational learning and indigenous knowledge ways through art making. And so here we have Ehren Kee Natay, a Dene and Kiwa Pueblo multimedia artist from Santa Fe. Some of his mediums range from music and movement to silversmithing and jewelry, painting, and drawing. He's won multiple awards at the Museum of Indian Arts and Culture Native Treasures Fine Art Show, the Wheelwright Museum of the American Indian, and the Art Design Collection Fellowship at SWIA. His work has also been exhibited in places like the Santa Fe Art Institute, National Hispanic Cultural Center, Museum of International Folk Art, the Poe Museum. I could go on and on. Of course, you have some work with us here at the Indian Arts Research Center. And in addition to all of those other titles and things he's done, he's an art educator who's worked with youth in New Mexico public schools and university systems and among Native American communities across the nation. So Ehren was our 2014 Ronald and Mary Ella King Native Artist Fellow here at SAR, and today we get to catch up with him and see where his creative practice has gone since then and over the years. So before we get going, I also just want to remind you we have the comment box at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to ask questions, comment, send the little heart emojis. We appreciate all the feedback and hearing from you folks. So hi Ehren, how's it going?
Hi, it's so good to speak with you this evening. It's going really well. I'm out here in Phoenix, Arizona. We're not quite melting yet, but it's super hot. And I'm here live from a site of an interior mural that I'm in the process of completing at a place called Walter Studios.
Awesome. Before we dive into your mural work, would you like to introduce yourself in your own words?
Sure. So my name is Ehren Kee Natay. I'm from Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'm Kiwa Pueblo and Dene, and I'm a multimedia artist. I started out playing drums and percussion when I was about 10 years old. And I haven't put a pair of sticks down since then. I still find myself always coming back to music as my primary discipline. But I'm also a painter and a silversmith, a sculptor. I learned a lot of these skills from the Poe Arts Museum and Culture Center in Pueblo, Milwaukee. And I've had a number of mentors and teachers all along the way. And now that I've sort of had some experience and some mastery in some of these mediums, I'm bringing them all together in the medium of film and technology, media arts.
Awesome. Well, thank you. All right. Do you want to tell us about the mural you're standing in front of?
Sure. So I'm at the location of 7th Ave and Roosevelt, 7th Ave and Roosevelt, downtown Phoenix in the historic district. and I'm actually at the site of the old Canyon Records building. Canyon Records is the longest standing independent record label still in production. And my grandfather was the first artist on Canyon back in 1951. Ray Boley was a recording artist and saw my grandfather performing at the Phoenix Little Theater. He was so in love with the music that he heard, which was traditional Navajo social songs, that Ray Boley decided he was going to start up a record label, with Ed Natay being the first Native American to be recorded for commercial release. So the executive and the owner of Walter Studios, Kirk Strawn, was put to the task of finding somebody that could help inform this building with artwork in dedication to the history of this building, knowing that Canyon used to be here. So Kirk's assistant, Michelle Meyer, reached out to me via a photo that she saw on the internet of myself digitally imposed into a photograph with my grandfather. And in this image, I'm a time traveler who has gone through back in time to meet my grandfather and listen to his album side by side. So they love this image. They have a whole futuristic theme in this building, which is being renovated from the previous recording studio that's out of commission to a Maker's Lab, music studio, library, an entertainment center, brew and pub, community hub, downtown Phoenix. So I'll back up a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
This wall is interior of the building, and it's an 18 feet high by 30 feet across, and it stretches out facing the north side.
Wow, that's so beautiful. That's gorgeous. Can you tell us a little bit about the imagery that
Sure.
we're looking at?
So you can see this right here is actually a piece that I constructed out of sterling silver and turquoise. And the closest thing that I could really explain this piece of artwork is that it's a time machine. It's based on a Bogard design. On the bottom, you'll see a strip of leather with sterling silver on top, and it's used for archers to protect themselves from their bowstring slapping against their wrist. But I wanted to create something that was a tool for me to represent how I was going to actually go back in time. And I thought sterling silver, sort of a steampunk sort of feel was my direction. Kind of like a Wild West is what I was imagining. The movie with Will Smith.
Yeah.
As cheesy as that movie was.
It's been a while, but yeah.
The Wild Wild West.
Pun intended. Yeah.
So I have this space gun as my time travel piece, and it's being used to transport me back in time to meeting my grandfather, who's seen here on this wall, which is perpendicular.
Yeah.
So this is Grandpa Natay, as I said, the first Native American to be recorded and played on the radio.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of love in the comments. A lot of folks saying you are amazing and fire emojis, and someone says so dope, and some other words that I won't repeat on this live.
Those must be the homies.
Yeah, they're probably the homies. With creating that image of your grandfather, were you able to reference a photo of him like that, or how much did you kind of have to like reimagine, I guess, like with his figure?
Yeah, that's a great question. So all of this project has involved Canyon Records because this is the original photo from the backside of the LP from 1951. So we actually had to be in really strong communication with Canyon because they still own the rights to this image.
Mm-hmm.
But they were very cooperative. They love what we're doing over at Canyon. Of course, it gives them, esteem to keep on doing what they're doing as a longest-standing record label here in America. And the image here is from 1951 when my grandfather was out trying to promote the film industry in New Mexico.
Oh, wow.
So he was very well known all over from traveling on the railway, and he went clear from Santa Fe all the way up to Canada and all the way to the East Coast in Philadelphia, made basically a triangle back.
Wow.
And it was very successful. It's still a successful album, still in sale to this date, and an important part of our American history. And of course, as our sort of a legend among our Navajo people.
Yeah, so I know that in the past, part of your creative practice was doing archival research of your grandfather, and I think that you had expressed at one point it might culminate to an illustrated or literary work that would chronicle his life. Has any of that, like, how has that practice or that research helped you with what you're working on now, or can you tell us about that project and where it stands?
Sure. So that project is through a fellowship funded by the First Peoples Fund. And my original intention was to create a graphic novel about my grandfather's life. When my father passed away in 2016, he left behind a memoir of my grandfather's. And it told of his life from when he was a little boy growing up on the reservation in Standing Rock, New Mexico, being a sheep herder, and his adventures out in the desert, to being taken to the boarding school and having his name changed, his hair cut, and all of the abuse that he underwent, as many of our relatives and our elders went through. And from coming from that really traumatic place in his life to going into the army, being a cavalry man in the World War I, and eventually learning the metal arts there through the army, he became a ship welder. Well, this brought him back to Santa Fe, New Mexico, because then he was a shop teacher. And in Santa Fe, he met my grandmother, who was from Pueblo, and she was a embroidery design artist. She made traditional and contemporary embroidery work. So they got together and had 2 children, and my father was Ehren Kee Natay Jr. So that's how I became aware of this history piece, and I started doing research at the Institute of American Indian Arts and at various colleges such as the Diné College and NAU, Arizona University, Northern Arizona University. And really, I'm still keeping my research going. I have a good friend of mine, his name is Kyle Boyd, and he's a big fan of Natay, and really he's shown me that the best history of Natay and his experiences and the things that he did, it comes directly from our people. So you talk about involving community. This is truly going to be a community-based work, because the elders are the ones that remember Ehren Natay, the legend, who made all of the golden oldie classics of traditional music.
Yeah. I think that you might have done, correct me if I'm wrong, a mural piece at the Nativo Lodge that was also in like commemoration of your grandfather. If that's true, it seems like the style is from that mural you did. I can't remember the year, but to this one now, they seem pretty different. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about that shift for you?
Sure. So I at Nativo Lodge, I did an interior mural much like this, but it was on the scale of a hotel room. And the interior was all done with spray paint. And I've been a graffiti artist and an outdoor muralist for about over 10 years. And the chemicals in the paint became very severely toxic to me. And it's something that is very common, and I always speak about this because I went through a very challenging health episode where I became so sensitive to chemicals that I absolutely could not be around spray paint. And I've come a long way with my health just having abstained from using these materials. So when people still were asking me, hey, we would love to have your artwork on our wall as a mural, I had to figure out ways to adjust. And Walter Studios was one of these clients that really had this need, and I was trying to meet their demand. So they had already been familiar with this process of wheat pasting photography and installing it onto the wall. So this is actually almost like a giant sticker
That's so
that
cool.
is adhered to the wall. And I had a lot of help from different artists to show me this technique. First and foremost, my partner, Oe Ray. She's done a lot of work with Obey and their studios, and she was detrimental to getting this piece up onto the wall. And Amaya and David Dupree were brought in as consultants to help with not only blowing up this image to a grand scale, but the actual application and the techniques that they learned from doing wheat paste out on the streets. And we all kind of combined our knowledges and put this up in probably about a week's time.
That's awesome. Well, I know you mentioned you could do a demo for us. Is it in spray paint?
Yeah, so I still use spray paint, but on a very small scale. So I can show you up close. If I come over here, these sort of like rays that are emanating from the center of this piece, and I call them like light speed rays. It's kind of similar to Star Trek when they go into warp speed, or
Yeah.
Star Trek. Yeah. So I've started adding some of these warp speeds with spray paint. They have a much softer feathered like gradation than something like this that was printed on the paper directly. So this paper, you can see it has wrinkles. That's part of the aesthetic of wheat paste. You know, it's like I said, a giant sticker that's going on with a really wet, watery glue.
Yeah, I think I really enjoy that textural quality actually.
Yeah, it's nice because you know, it's a brick wall inside this building. I'll get a little closer here. It's a brick wall, so you start to see the texture of the wall through the image, which is really nice. You can see some of the brick pattern up here.
Yeah, I love that.
So the way that I do the stencils, it's super easy. I always like to do a little instruction, a little bit of demo just to show people and, you know, some of the artists out there how I do what I do. So I basically just cut a triangle out of this piece of paper, and I use the blue painter's tape to keep a nice smooth edge. And this is just going to be a spray painted triangle. So I always wear gloves and a mask now, so you'll have to give me one moment while I put those on.
I remember in art school when I was learning oil painting, my professors would always say, do as I say, not as I do. And wouldn't put on any gloves, wouldn't worry about any precautions. I think at the time they would still use baby powder also in their gloves, and then come to find out that it's not very good for you either.
You know, we're under such a toxic load, human beings, and really everybody in this planet is facing it. So I try to do as much as I can to mitigate that. But you know, when you have a really pressing a mural job, and you don't have a lot of space when you're traveling to carry the volume of a bucket of paint, you know, a few cans really helps speed up the process and is easy cleanup, etc. But, you know, really, this stuff should be illegal, in my opinion. They really shouldn't have spray paint to be an option in the chemical ingredients that they have. It's really terrible stuff. So, again, do as I say, not as I do, right?
Yeah. Like this is a dare segment, but art version.
Right.
Someone in the comments said, seriously awesome as always.
So I'll just demo how I make one of these shapes here. Like this one, you can see it has kind of a smooth gradation. It fades out.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That one's done with the spray paint, whereas this one is blocky. We're gonna try and do one with a little bit of gradation, and I'll finish it off with a blocky edge. So super simple. As I said, I've got the tape already here on the stencil, so it's already good to adhere. I'll kind of line these up. Let's see, maybe like so. I kind of just eyeball it, feel where I feel like it needs a little bit extra. I'm thinking right here. So I'll stick it down. Okay. And then I'm just gonna feather it lightly with my finger, my index finger. I just barely press on the can and it'll just feather it nice and smooth. Smooth gradation.
Cool. So it seems like you almost did like a cross-hatching ropes.
It's just the same as doing any kind of fill with pencil or pen.
Mm.
That cross hatching helps it give a smooth, even tone. When you go in the same direction over and over, it ends up getting real drippy, wet, and just it looks dirty. So yeah, you figure out the techniques over the years, but it's really simple. Most people can get the hang of the stencil stuff right away. And you don't have to use spray paint. That's what's great, is that you can still use brush paint. You can use a spray bottle with ink in it. There's all different sorts of applications for this technique.
Yeah, thanks for showing that to us. I'm sad because we're running out of time so quickly and there's a lot of stuff we could cover. I guess what seems relevant though is, you know, you're a musician in your own right. Your grandfather was a musician. Can you tell us about what your music career has been like as of late? I know that you're a part of the Adrian Wall Trio, for example. Yeah, can you just fill us in?
Sure. So I've been playing percussion now for 26 years, I believe. And over the years, you know, I've made a lot of really great friendships with musicians that I perform with. And one such person is Adrian Wall. He's a sculptor from Pueblo, and just an amazing person. Also a very talented music, sculpture, jewelry, glass. Just does it all, and is one of the best out there, really doing it. So you know, we've been good friends, and he invited me to do a theatrical musical presentation about the history of the flute, where it comes from, the stories that we have about flutes, and you know, just some good classic songs with a reggae spin on it. So that's what we do as a trio. but I also produce my own music. I'm super excited about a project that's coming out at the end of this year. It's on Netflix animation, and it's called Spirit Rangers, soon to be released. And it's an amazing show by Carissa Valencia. She's a Chumash native out in Santa Barbara, California. And her show follows the adventure of 3 siblings who have magical powers that help them protect a national park where they're from. So I was brought in to play percussion, to be a producer, and to write one song. And it'll be out later this year. It's kind of like a Pixar style animation, so there's all these moving pieces that have to come together to make it work. So we're all trying to be patient, but it looks and sounds amazing so far. So stay tuned for that.
Wow, congratulations. That's really, really awesome. It's amazing. With your music, do you ever, I mean, this is probably a silly question, but do you play any songs from your grandfather?
Yeah, I still carry his songs and his stories, which were, passed to me through my dad. And, I think there's no other way to really christen this room and this building than to have a musical event and to sing some of Natay's songs. So we have that planned in the books. There's going to be a grand opening out here at Walter Studios. The tentative date is set for June, but it's another project with so many moving pieces that we're hopeful that June is going to be the grand opening where we can invite the community in and really fill this place out. And part of that will be sharing some of Ehren Natay's classics from the 1950s.
Someone, aka my mom, says truly amazing and creative artwork, interesting and educational. Well, awesome. Thanks for sharing your time with us. I feel so privileged to be able to see your work in progress. And I guess for any folks who want to stay up to date with your work, where can we follow you or see you next?
Yeah, keep an eye out on my Instagram at Kee Natay. That's KEENATAY. And I try to keep up to date with my stories. And my website is www.ehrenkeenatay.com.
Great. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for logging in tonight. Ehren, thank you so much. And thank you for all the work you do as an educator, as an artist. I'm definitely going to watch that Netflix show at the end of the year. Can't wait.
Thank you, Olivia. And thank you to the School for Advanced Research and the Indian Arts Research Center. I'm amazed by the work you do, and I'm so happy to have you as a lifelong friend in the community.
Likewise. All right, have a good night. Drink water. Don't get overheated.
Thank you.
Put sunscreen.
We'll see you all.
Bye, everyone.